Somewhere in your kitchen cabinet right now, there is a little glass jar, a few tablespoons of cooking oil, and a scrap of cotton string. Put those three things together the right way, and you have got a lamp that will burn for hours on end, refill itself as many times as you have oil on the shelf, and never once ask you for a battery, a propane tank, or a single cent from the electric company. My grandfather kept one of these burning out on the porch through every storm that ever knocked our power out. Half the folks watching right now have never even seen one lit. Name is Amos Miller. Today, I am building one of these oil lamps from scratch, right in front of you, using nothing you cannot find in a regular grocery store for a few dollars. I will show you exactly how the old-timers put these together. The one mistake that has most people's lamp smoking up the kitchen inside of 10 minutes, and how long a single fill really lasts once you get it built right. Stick with me to the end, because I am also going to tell you the one thing you should never, ever do with an open flame like this, whether you are lighting it for a power outage or just for the quiet of a Friday evening. Before the power lines ever reached the countryside, nearly every farmhouse kept a lamp exactly like this one burning after dark. In the early days it was whale oil, then it was kerosene, and out here, among plain families, it was often just whatever cooking oil was already sitting in the pantry. Nobody was driving into town for a special fuel. You used what you had. I remember my grandfather's lamp sitting on the windowsill in the kitchen, and the smell of warm oil in the evening air. When a storm knocked the electric out, which happened plenty, that lamp was already sitting there, ready, no fumbling in the dark, for a flashlight with dead batteries in it. Now, there were fancier versions back then too. Some households had a glass hurricane lantern with a tall chimney to protect the flame from wind on the porch. Some had what they called an Aladdin lamp, with a woven mantle that glowed almost as bright as a modern light bulb. Those were the nicer models, and they cost real money new. But the simple jar lamp I am building today is what most working families actually kept in the kitchen drawer, because it cost next to nothing, and any child old enough to strike a match could put one together in a few minutes. What most folks do not realize is how simple the actual design is. It is not a fire hazard waiting to happen if you build it correctly, and it is not some complicated antique you need to go hunting for at an estate sale. It is a jar, a wick, and oil, arranged so the flame only ever burns the vapor coming off the top of the wick, never the oil itself. That is the whole secret the old-timers understood, and it is exactly what I am going to show you how to build, piece by piece. Right now. Here is everything you need, and chances are you already own most of it. First, a small glass jar. A mason jar works fine, or even an old glass food jar you were about to throw in the recycling. Second, cooking oil. Plain vegetable oil works, olive oil works, even old cooking oil you have already used once will burn just fine, so nothing here has to go to waste. Third, a wick. A strip of pure cotton, cut from an old rag or a cotton cord, is all you need. And last, something to hold that wick upright and steady. A metal washer works perfectly, or a small binder clip with the wick threaded through the loop. That is the whole list. Total cost, if you are starting from nothing, is under $3, and that is being generous. Most folks watching already have every single item sitting in a kitchen drawer or the garage. If you want to dress it up a little, a canning jar with a decorative lid ring looks nicer sitting on a table than a plain recycled jar, and it costs about the same. Some folks also add a few drops of an essential oil, like citronella or lavender, right into the oil before lighting it, which gives the room a nice smell while it burns, and citronella has the side benefit of helping keep mosquitoes away on a summer evening. One more thing before we build it. Do not reach for gasoline, paint thinner, or anything marked flammable on the label. Those are a different animal entirely, and they belong nowhere near an open flame like this. Plain cooking oil burns slow, low, and steady, which is exactly what makes this safe enough to keep in the house in the first place. All right, let us build it. First, cut your cotton wick to about twice the height of your jar. You want plenty of extra length. We will trim it down later once we know how it sits. Next, thread the wick through your washer, right through the center hole, so the washer sits about half an inch from the bottom end. That washer is going to sit at the bottom of the jar and keep the wick standing up straight instead of floating around and flopping over the side. Now pour in your oil, only about 2/3 of the way up the jar, never all the way to the top. Drop the wick and washer down into the oil, washer side down, and let the wick soak for a good 5 minutes before you light it. This part matters more than people think. A dry wick will scorch and smoke the second you touch a match to it. A properly soaked wick lights clean and burns steady. Once it has soaked, trim the top of the wick down to about 1/4 inch above the rim of the jar. Any longer than that, and you will get a tall, smoky flame instead of a small, clean one. Now for the moment of truth. Light the tip of that wick. You should see a small, steady flame, about the size of a birthday candle, no bigger. If it is smoking or the flame is jumping around, that wick is sitting too high, so trim it back down and try again. Give it a minute to settle, and there you have it. That is the whole build, start to finish, in about 10 minutes. Now, why does this actually work? It comes down to something called capillary action. Same reason a paper towel soaks up a spill, even when you are only touching one corner of it to the water. That cotton wick is constantly pulling oil up from the jar to the flame, a little at a time, which is exactly why the flame never runs out of fuel as long as there is still oil down in that jar. Here is the number that surprises people most. A jar like this one, filled with about 1 cup of vegetable oil, will burn for somewhere around 15 hours on a single fill. That is not 15 minutes, 15 hours. Compare that to a store-bought candle, which burns the wax itself and is simply gone once it melts down. This lamp only burns the vapor. The oil underneath just keeps sitting there, waiting to be pulled up the wick, which means when it finally does run low, you are not throwing anything away. You just top off the jar and keep going. That is the real difference between this and a candle. A candle is something you use up. This is something you refill, over and over, for pennies at a time, for about as long as you have got cooking oil in the house. Let us talk plain dollars for a second. A basic emergency candle at the store runs you $3 to $5, and once it is gone, you are buying another one. A bottle of vegetable oil big enough to refill this lamp 40 or 50 times over costs about the same $3 to $5. Refill it once a week, and that same little jar, and that same little wick could be lighting your kitchen for the better part of a year before you spend another dime on fuel. That is the kind of math the old-timers understood without ever writing it down on paper. Before you go build one of these yourselves, I promised you the one thing you should never do. So here it is, plain and simple. Never leave an open flame like this burning unattended. Not overnight, not in another room, not around pets or little ones who might reach for it or knock it over. This is still an open flame sitting in a jar of oil, not a battery-powered light, and it deserves the same respect you would give any candle or lantern in the house. Keep it away from curtains, papers, and anything else that catches easy. Set it on something solid that will not tip, and give the room a little fresh air while it is burning. If you are using this for an actual power outage, keep a flashlight or battery lantern nearby too, just in case. This lamp is a wonderful old-fashioned backup. It is not a replacement for basic fire safety. That said, once you have got the hang of it, this little jar lamp is one of the simplest, cheapest pieces of old-time know-how you can keep in your home. My grandfather's generation did not think twice about it. They just knew it worked. If this is the kind of old, forgotten skill you want more of, stick around. I have got plenty more of what the old-timers knew that folks these days have simply forgotten. Name's Amos Miller, and I will see you in the next one.